Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. Now I've been pretty inactive in the last few days and unfortunately that was out of my hands, but my modem died on Wednesday and I only got a replacement like 30 minutes ago, so that is the reason why you didn't see me online and I couldn't get to respond to any of the comments or anything like that. But it looks like it's fixed now, and so the first thing that was on the agenda was an EVE Talk for this Saturday, so let's jump right in. But yeah, modem died, I had no internet, and it's also the reason why I had no video for Friday. Anyways, let's jump in on the market here. As always, we will start with plex, that's 45 seconds. And let's take a look at the chart here. Plex continuing to go down, although I must say that this is less dramatic than it looks. If I'm not mistaken, the price is still at 1.123 billion. Well, honestly, it is a little bit less. So we are slowly losing ground. We're well away from 1.2 billion now, which in my inflation video I asked you guys to buy, but apparently the sales are just too strong at the moment, and they're driving down the price of plex, which is good news, of course, for anyone that seeks to fund their account through a plex, or maybe people that are looking for that investment. It becomes a little bit more affordable. The question is, how low will we go? Personally, I don't think we'll go that much lower. I definitely don't think we'll break 1 billion. So I do think that the new normal for plex is that they will cost more than 1 billion ISK, and that it will stay like that in the foreseeable future. And I think that the most interesting part is going to be what's going to happen to plex in the run-up to the next expansion, when CCP actually starts to also come out with a trailer and starts to promote that one a little bit. We'll have to wait and see. Let's touch on the multiple pilot training certificates. That is actually decently interesting. You can see that it dropped off far more violently, close to 1.05 billion on some of the data points, and actually crawling its way back up. But I think that the 20-day moving average is trying to mirror the plex here. So maybe that went down just a little bit too quickly, and so now it has to recover a little bit. But the pressure from plex will probably mean that it's going to be driven down a little bit more. 1.147 billion for the sellers here. Close to 1 billion for the buyers, so they are trying to drive the price down, but I don't think it's gonna work all that well. Next up here we've got the body resculpt certificate. That one is going down as well, breaking 200 million, 215 to 16 for the sellers, but 195 million for the buyers. They're trying to get their body resculpt below 200 million at this point. So this is of course the pressure from plex that permeates through anything that is tied to like the next door or real life purchases. That's showing up here. So I think overall this is quite all right, but the interesting period is going to be after the sales are actually over. Let's move on to some minerals, and that's at 330. Write that down, and we'll start with titanium, which you could have seen it already on the ticker, has gone up a little bit. That's quite to my surprise. But titanium, you can see here, oh, this is actually a 1-year chart. Let's go back to the 6-month chart. You can see that it went a little bit up. The 20-day moving average really started to move right around 6.3 ISK, but we moved up, and so these sellers are at 645. Well, there's one at 638 that just came in after I took the data, but it's also a pretty small one. So we could say 645 for the sellers, 632 for the buyers. Volume wise here we've got 100 million, 50 million, another 70, another 45, and 3/4 of the front page here, including a couple more close to 100 million that are less than 24 hours old. On the buyers we've got a little bit less in the number of buy orders, but 400 million, 200 million and 655 million units that are being bought right here. That still gives the edge to demand, and so upwards pressure on the price is still here. On the other hand, keep one thing in mind, we're still moving when it comes to like the daily averages in the 6.2 to 6.4 price band. So it could just be that someone bought a lot of titanium, causing the price to spike a little bit, but overall it doesn't look like we're in for a breakout just yet. But The fact that we are moving towards the upper part of the chart here at 6.4 is very good news for high-sec miners. Let's take a look at pyrite next then. Yeah, this is an indication that this is indeed just a normal variation, because we're not seeing the same for pyrite. Pyrite, in fact, moving down to its lower limit. If we take a limit of 11.10 to 11.5 maybe as an average in between which pyrite could move sideways, then that is possible. But 20-day moving average clearly going down as well, and we're touching on 11.10, so 11.32 for the sellers, 11.03 for the buyers, and still we have 100 million coming in here, 77 million coming in here, and that's it for the newer orders. Yeah, for the buyers, 376 million, 110, 100, 100. So this should stop this descent, and again, I do think pyrite could start moving between 11.10 and 11.50. And is my music a little loud because I had to reset? No, doesn't really look like it. So just in my in my earbuds that it's a little loud. So let's lower the volume here and move on to Mexalon, which is that's pretty good news here, bouncing off of the 60 ISK price mark. So it's trying to stay well above that. Let's take a look at the sellers here, 61.28, then there's a small order here at 60.5, but just above 61 ISK I would say for Mexalon for the sellers, and just above 60 ISK as well for the buyers, where we get 44 million, 28, 32 million, and then here one of 135 million. That's probably going to help keep the price above 60 ISK. And on the seller side, it's, well, half the page, 18, 12 and 75 million, keeping the price just above 60 ISK, and I think it's gonna stay there in the foreseeable future. Next up here we've got Isogen moving down towards 110 ISK. That does seem to be a bit more structural, so maybe I would have expected, looking at the chart up to here, that we could be moving in between 115 and 120, but we're clearly going down towards 110 now. So 111 for the sellers, 106 for the buyers, and buy orders here 35 million, that's one, and then 12 million, that's another one, less than 24 hours old, but not that much. And on the sellers here, not that many new orders either. So people are apparently hesitating a little bit when it comes to Isogen, and I guess it's mostly the buy orders that are getting filled at the moment, dragging down the price. It's going to be interesting to see if it can actually bounce back. Supply does seem to be drying up, so I think that there's a little chance that it will bounce back off of 110. But yeah, Isogen, there is some pressure on the Isogen price at the moment. Moving on here to Noxium, bouncing off again off the 470 or pretty close to that, and still staying below 480. Yeah, even the sellers are going for 479, 2 million, 4 million, 4 million, and on the buyers we've got, they're trying to buy them for 465. So, and there is still 4.5 million here, 5 million here, 12 million here. There is, yeah, Noxium, it's at a very low point, and it's having a very hard time trying to crawl out of that. And I do think it is because it can be mined in high-sec, and I think that just has stayed pretty much normal, but it can also be mined in vast quantities in null-sec, and I think that is where all of this pressure is coming from. Because if we look at Megasite, I'll just jump to Megasite because it is on the ticker. You can clearly see that we broke 1100 ISK, and again we're moving way down towards 1000 ISK now. Where are the buyers at? 994 ISK, sellers 1025. We still see 5 million, 2 million units, 2 million units coming in. So there is, despite the prices coming very close to 1000 ISK, we are still seeing some pressure on it, and the buyers, they are going below 1000 ISK, not willing to go above that. They clearly want that barrier to be broken as well. Will they succeed? At some point it's gonna stop, of course, but this is a very clear show that the 2200 ISK was quite a bit of an overestimation, and that at the moment the null-sec mineral faucet is just churning out Megasite and Noxium and things like that at an incredible rate that the market just can't absorb at the moment, and we're heading for 1000 ISK. Let's see if Siderine broke that. Yes, clearly heading towards 900 ISK. This is starting to look like a landing though. 20-day and 5-day moving average really coming close to each other, flattening out. just above 900 ISK. So the buyers are trying just below that, but you can clearly see that there is some competition coming in here. Nothing in the last 24 hours has come in on the seller side, and the buyers here, they're pretty much forced to accept 900 ISK for Zydrine. So if Zydrine is any indication, I think we're heading for 900 for Zydrine and 1000 for Megasite here as the prices where they will finally start to stabilize a little bit. Touching on Morphite here, still staying above 11,000, so tried to break that for just a moment, but bounced right back off of that. So 11,000 to 11,500 is for Morphite, despite the fact that this must have more supply as well, just like the other nullsec minerals. This is maintaining a pretty strong price as well, so that is pretty damn interesting to see how Morphite, which is tied to Tech 2 production, has managed to stay quite robust, whereas Zydrine, which is basically mined from the same source, nullsec ores, has dropped so much, and the same for Megasite. Pretty unusual situation. Let's take a look then at if there's an impact on the Tech 1 market, 1110. Writing that down. Let's start here with the Armageddon, who is finally trying to go down a little bit from 210 million down to 208. Did someone plug the gap? Well, not by that much, honestly. We've got the 49 that came in here. We've got a few more that are coming in here at 209 million. What I think is also happening is that the buyers have moved up to 204 million, and so those are being filled as well, maybe causing a little bit of a dip in the price here on average. But yeah, there's still not that many Armageddons that are going for like below 210 million, and so the price is still pretty high. I wonder, I should maybe do the math, but a BPO is pretty price intensive for a battleship, but I think you get a pretty decent margin for 210 million for an Armageddon. Next up here we've got the Caracal. That one went down to 11 million. Now it's moving back up a little bit, which I think is a normal correction, but it's still 11.9 million and 11.2 for the buyers, so 11.9 for the sellers. And we've got 122 that are waiting in the wings here, keeping the price from really spiraling out of control. And we've got another 20 or so Caracals coming in, which is way less than the daily average that is traded in volumes. But I think this is healthy, and we'll probably see the Caracal move around the 11.5 million price mark, which it has done in the last 6 months or so. Next up here we've got the Dominics. That's decent spike from 195 to 210 million. 15 million increase in price. They're currently selling for 215, but the response is already here. You can clearly see that we've got a front page of orders less than 24 hours old, and 49 of them coming in here at 215. This is going to stop this increase in price and will probably drop back down pretty soon. As yeah, this supply is just a little bit too much all of a sudden. But people noticed the opportunity to sell Dominics for 220, 215. They jumped in on that, and that gap has been plugged pretty quickly. All of this happened inside a week, so pretty interesting. Next up here we've got the Drake also going back down, but starting to move at around the 55 million average, now added down. At a pretty low point in that average, but despite that, yeah, still we see some 60-70 Drakes coming in here in the last 24 hours. So 60-70, a little bit less than the daily average volume, but that's still pretty strong. We could see the Drake drop a little bit lower than it is now, but on average I think 55 million for a Drake is what we can expect. This will obviously dry up. Once these 52 here are gone, I think there will be room for the Drake to move back up a little bit, and then if the price goes back towards 55 million, where you've got a bigger order waiting in the wings, you'll probably see supply come back in here trying to take advantage of these prices. Next up here we've got the Mauler stabilizing in between the 11 and the 12 million mark, so I don't think that anything special is going to happen here. Nope, around almost half a page of new orders and still a pretty healthy supply on the market as well. Next up, we've got the Myrmidon, who went up towards 58 million, but that gap has been closed as well. And yeah, that's 2 pages pretty much of new Myrmidons in the last 24 hours or so. One of the most recent orders is for 25 of them. So just like the Dominics, looks like Galente Industry is spotting the opportunities and plugging them very, very quickly. Next up, we've got the Oracle moving towards 80 million, slowly going down in volatility, and that is, I think, because this is decent. We've got 10, 19, 14 and 22 of them right here, a lot of them in the last 24 hours or so. So oracles are just being produced pretty healthily. There's a decent supply waiting for people that actually want to buy them, and unless it's like a major alliance that decides to all of a sudden needs 200 oracles for a fleet, this could start to stabilize around 80 million. Next up, we've got the Raven going down towards 185. So the Raven went up to 200 million. I think it was to bring it in line with most of the other battleships, but that just looks like it's not that popular at the moment. Buyers 182, sellers 188. That's a pretty damn small margin, and despite that, you can clearly see that there's decent supply. There's a lot of them on the market, so Caldari Industry actually outproducing demand a little bit when it comes to the Raven. Next up here, we've got the Stabber, who is heading towards 11 million on the averages, which I think is quite alright. And supply wise, well, okay, we've got some new orders. There are not that many Stabbers on the market just yet, so I think that the industry still has some catching up to do, which means that there will still be some volatility in the Stabber market. But I do think you can see that it is starting to stabilize, so waiting a few more weeks or months, and I think we'll actually start to see a full page of Stabbers available at different price ranges, which is going to help stabilize everything. The Tornado, this is pretty surprising for a tier 3 battle cruiser to go back down towards a low point for 6 months at 72 million. So that should mean decent supply, and it does. So you can clearly see that there are a lot of Tornadoes on the market, ranging from like 80 million all the way down towards 74 million, and half a page, nope, almost an entire front page here of new Tornadoes coming to the market. Demand doesn't seem to be that strong, and so at the moment pressure on the Tornado, which is yeah, pretty much the opposite of the Stabber. The Stabber, a lot of volatility here, and not that much on the market for a cruiser. So pretty interesting. Next up, we've got the Typhoon, though, also under pressure. So the Minmatar just doesn't seem to be that popular at the moment. There's quite a few Typhoons here. Look at that. That's indeed a lot of them. And even the latest order is for 20 Typhoons, trying to sell them at 183.5 million. That's pretty low. And so pressure is on here. A little bit of a correction, just like with the Raven. And then finally, we've got the Vexor, another Galente cruiser here. I think that this one has found its stable price range, 11.5 to 12 million. So this should be healthily supplied, but not completely oversupplied either. And yep, the new orders 55, 14 and 1, but it's just 3 of them. The rest of them have been here, keeping the price of Vexors in check. So I do think that Tech 1 industry has some catching up to do if they want stable prices across the board, but some of them are actually starting to fall back, like the Raven and some of the Minmatar ships. So it has a little bit of on both sides. You know, you've got like the Armageddon, which is still pretty much, well, dry for anything below 210 million. I would have thought more Armageddons would start to come to the market, trying to still take advantage of these prices. But on the other hand, we're seeing some overproduction in other ships as well. So I guess the Tech 1 industry just needs to find its way back towards more stability and a better ability to supply whatever it is that the market needs exactly. But yeah, we come out of a period of more volatility, and I'm starting to see the first signs of stabilizations as well. Next up, let's take a look at some Tech 2 stuff. That's going to be 1930. Let's see if there's some trades to be spotted. So here we've got the Basilisk, that unfortunately I really don't like, because it is just You can see here from the peaks in the last 6 months that have gone down, down and down, and then the bottoms, well, they've always tried towards 180 million, but unless you can buy them below 175, which you can at the moment, actually buyers went below 170, then it's pretty risky in my book. So there is decent supply at these prices, but you can pick up basilisks below 170 million, and if you look at this chart, that's obviously a good buy. You may need to wait a little bit for an opportunity because there is decent supply, but yeah, the basilisk I think is an interesting medium to longer term investment at the moment on the buy order side. Next up here we get Cerberus. That one went to a very low point, tried to climb out of that, went above 180, but also going back down here again. So it just oversupplied a little bit in the Take 2 market here. You can clearly see that there's quite a lot of Cerberus still on the market. The buyers are below 180 million, which is okay, but again, that looks to me like it's more of a medium to long term gamble, because it's alright to buy them below 180 million, clearly in the last 6 months. Not as good as what the basilisk is looking like, but definitely alright. But you are also seeing that big supply that is here, and so a chance that it may not be volatile anytime soon. Next up here we've got the Guardian. That's pretty decent, 130 to almost, well, let's say 145, so that's more than 10%, and that on a double spike. It's on its way down now, of course, so this is the time where you have to wait for the right buy opportunity to show up again. But I would definitely say that you can only buy Guardians below 130 if you want to be on the safe side. But in the last 2 months or so, we had 2 sell opportunities at more than 10% profit, which I think is not that bad. Next up here we've got the Hound. Unfortunately, all of these stealth bombers have started to show more and more stability. You can see that the highs have gone lower and lower and lower. The lows as well have just gone higher, higher, higher again. And here we're now just hovering at around 17 million. There is pretty damn good supply. In fact, that's more than we saw in any Tech 1 ship market, and demand just not that high at the moment either, and so I'm not seeing the volatility in the stealth bombers at the moment. Next up here we've got the Ishtar. That is unexpected but very nice to see. So you could have bought Ishtars below 160, I think, not that long ago, and are just selling for 175, which is okay. At least we're seeing a double spike here as well. So the Ishtar, there may be some money to be made in there, but I do think that you might 16 added here, that would be 176. It is still below 10%, unfortunately, so I don't like it that it's below 10%, but at least it's showing some volatility on the chart. It could have made you some money if you didn't know what to invest in other than the Ishtar. Next up here we've got the Manticore. Again, I'm really not liking this, just hovering between the 20 and 24 million mark, which you could say is alright, but it's really just hanging around that 22 million mark, and we're just not seeing the volatility needed to risk a gamble here. The Nemesis, that is slightly more interesting, going from well below 17 million to 18 million. At least this is the only one that shows some volatility. It was also a no-brainer buy when the chart was this low. We were at a 6-month low close to 16.5 million. So obviously some people saw that investment opportunity and responded to it. The question is, will the Nemesis be able to trigger some volatility? Selling at 18.5, if you could have bought them for 16.5, that's more than 10%. So there was a slight trade to be had here, but I clearly did spot that one as well, because the Nemesis was at such a low point that it was basically a no-brainer to try and pick him up at that price. And it turned out to be right. I just don't think that this is a sign yet that stealth bombers are gonna show some volatility, because this was just such a low point that I was gonna have to bounce back a little bit anyways. And it could just be that the Nemesis is gonna start to move around 18 to 17.5 million in the foreseeable future, and that just like the other stealth bombers, there's not enough volatility to actually risk any trade money in these. The Oneros here, that's quite a bit better. You can clearly see that since October we've had two nice spikes up to 175, buyers at 140 or below that. 35 million, that's definitely not bad percentage wise, and we're once again going down towards 140. Where are the buyers at? Right around 140, so people do know this floor. But the Oneros showed that there have been some opportunities to make some trade money in the Tech 2 market in the last few months or so. Next up here we get a Purifier, again really not liking this, showing way too much stability. So let's just skip to the Scimitar, which is a lot better and could be my tip of the day, I think, because we saw a spike up to 160, but now we're dropping, which is clearly a 6-month low. Data points at 115. Sellers 125, buyers 120. People already saw this, as you can clearly see here. Buy orders less than 24 hours old, 10 of them 117, but now people came in here with 120, 120, 120 and 120. So it may already be a little bit too late to actually buy scimitars below 120, but this is clearly a 6-month low. 120 for a scimitar I think is a good investment, and that could be the one where you could make some money in the next few weeks if it actually does bounce back, just like the scimitar. It doesn't even have to be actual trade volatility here. This can just be a bounce off of a bottom that could happen anytime, I think. And next up we've got the Vengeance, which I'm still keeping an eye on some of these assault frigates, but nope, just you can clearly see that it wants to stay at 19 million. It showed a little bit of a spike here, but look at how quickly it responded and we're right back here. So I'm not liking the Vengeance at the moment. Seems like the frigates are just not doing that well, except for one, the Nemesis, which was probably one of the best trades that you could have done here, from the ones that I check on EveTalk at least. Moving on to some Tech 3 stuff, let's take a look at that. 2645, write that down, and let's start here with the Confessor that is going towards 65 million, so going up. But that's not gonna last very long, with 250 of them coming in just a few hours ago. So this increase in price here, it's gonna stop. This is clearly going to stop the price from going above 63.5 again, and if more supply comes in, then the Confessor is probably just going to go back down towards 55 million, I think. Next up we've got the Hecate. Ooh, very nice spike. So yeah, the Tech 3 market is actually showing more volatility than the Tech 2 market here, bouncing from 55 to 65 million, and they're actually selling for close to 72 million. So the Hecate was probably bought out, was completely empty. You can clearly see that, except for the really expensive ones of like 80 million that are now 2 days old. There's just a few of them coming in at 75 to 72 million less than 24 hours ago. So the Hecate was your trade opportunity. If you manage to buy them for like 62 million, you can easily sell them for way more than 10% profit at the moment, close to 72 million. So volatility in the Tech 3 market once again. The Jackdaw though showing some stability at 60 million, and that is because, as you can see here, there's still a few hundred Jackdaws on the market. There's still half a page of them coming in less than 24 hours ago. So that is obviously stabilizing the price a little bit. And then we get this Vipul here, also spiking up towards 65, but you can see that that will have already been plugged because we're going back down already. And indeed the response is here, 125, 2 orders like less than 30 minutes ago coming in here. So this Vipul is set to actually correct back a little bit from that bounce. So the Hecate, pretty interesting if you have some of those lying around. And then let's take a look at some of the cruisers here. Some pressure on the Legion, going down towards 180 million. Market seems decently stocked with, well, more than a full front page of new Legions coming in, trying to sell them close to 180 or above 180. But yeah, coming in at 179 here, putting that pressure on the Legion at the moment with a well-supplied market. Next up, all right, I have 1 hour left. That should work. Next up, we'll take a look at the Loki. Pretty similar here. Also some pressure after its high of 200 million. Let's take a look at supply here. 23 of them coming in. Not that much. So the Legion is obviously under a lot of pressure because of the vast amount of new Legions coming in the last 24 hours. On the Loki, it's just maybe half a front page or so 30 to 40 Lokis probably. So this could actually stop quite a bit sooner than the Legion. Next up we've got the Proteus, very nice spike up to 240. So now again with the pressure, obviously, yeah, again, more than a front page, less than 24 hours ago. That's quite a few Proteus that are coming to the market. And so here we've got some pressure that may yet have some momentum. And then finally here we've got the Tengu is slowly going down. This is pretty unusual to not see that much volatility here. But again, let's take a look here. Well, pretty much in line with the Loki. So there is lower volatility, the price not going down that much, but we can also see that it's only like half a front page of new orders, maybe 10-15 Tengus coming in, and it's actually older orders of 95, 20, 44 units here that are keeping the price of the Tengu in check a bit more than the other cruisers. So pretty interesting. The volatility seems to have moved quite a bit to Tech 3, and at the moment it's the destroyers that seem to be quite popular. And the Hecate was the great opportunity if you manage to buy them below 55 million. Not that long ago, you're currently selling them for more than 70 million pretty easily, I think. So if you have them lying around, this is your chance to sell them. And then finally for the extra product, 31 minutes. I'm gonna make it easy on myself. I'm gonna check the isotopes because I've had a little bit of stress from losing internet. Not that much, honestly. I managed to say, okay, I'll just see this as a little break from making the videos, but I did miss it and there was some stress. Let's hope they can actually fix it quickly, which they did, thankfully. But yeah, let's just check on the isotopes because the fuels have been really stable. We've seen the Caldari fuel blocks just not move in weeks, and I'm curious to see what's happening with the isotopes here. So I'm seeing more volatility here, so starting let's say at 700 going up to 780, so that is more than 10% increase, then dropping to 680, that's definitely a big drop, going back up again and coming back down here again. So helium isotopes, a little bit of volatility, although we are at a low point for 6 months at 680 is at the moment for helium isotopes. A little bit unexpected. I expect to see a much more stable market here. Hydrogen isotope, exactly the opposite. We're actually at pretty much a high point for 6 months, and just one volatility to really be spotted here, an increase in price from 680 to 760, and it actually looks like hydrogen isotopes are managing to maintain that higher price. So from this you would actually expect some volatility to show. Here is nitrogen isotopes. That's quite a bit more stable. Could be that this one is actually related to the Caldari fuel blocks. I'm not exactly sure. Let's see if I can actually find the isotope here. It's nitrogen isotope. Yep, exactly. So nitrogen isotope, quite a bit more stable, clearly trading just above the 840 ISK range, 840 to 860. We don't see that sort of volatility, and as a result the Caldari fuel blocks have stayed very stable as well. So let's maybe try and see for the oxygen isotopes. They're at a high point, clearly 800 ISK for oxygen isotopes, high point for the 6 months right here. And then which one are they used in? So Minmatar use hydrogen isotopes. Let's see if that's translated in the Minmatar fuel block. Not by that much, but you can clearly see that the same trend over 6 months has showed up as well. And so Minmatar fuel blocks pretty high. And then let's see, we have hydrogen isotopes. These were, well, high for 6 months, but pretty stable lately. And would that be hydrogen? Would that be Galente? Industry, nope, that's Galente is actually oxygen. What the hell? Thought it was Minmatar that had oxygen. It's Minmatar that is hydrogen. Man, I'm switching things up a little bit here. So this is hydrogen isotope, which is for Minmatar fuel blocks. And yep, you can see here, we are at a high point for 6 months, but we came back down a little bit in the last few weeks or so. And so did the Minmatar fuel blocks. So the retracing here, it can be found. And then oxygen isotopes. Oops, don't need to click show info here, at a high point. Galente fuel blocks. well, at a high point with some volatility here at the tail end. Pretty interesting. And then helium isotopes, which are actually at a 6-month low, should be used in the Amar fuel blocks. Let's see if that's right. Yes, it's right. And Amar are actually at a high point for 6 months. So that one is actually breaking the trend here. The Amar fuel blocks are doing their own thing, completely counter to the isotopes it's linked to, whereas the other ones were doing quite alright, especially the Caldari one with a stable isotope market. So it's not an exact one-one science here. There are of course other products used as well in the production of fuel blocks, but there seems to be some correlation between the stability of the nitrogen isotopes here and then the stability that I saw as well in the Caldari fuel blocks. So it's pretty interesting, I think, to touch on these isotopes once in a while. It gives an indication for how ice mining is doing, and it looks to me like oxygen isotopes are really at a very high point at the moment for some reason. So yeah, there you go guys, that's going to be it for this EVE talk. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.